Nigel Farage shut down Sky News' Beth Rigby in a fiery live exchange, leaving the veteran journalist momentarily speechless as he delivered a masterclass in media handling. Rigby pressed the Reform UK leader on the past conviction of MP James McMurdoch, but Farage refused to be cornered, dismissing the topic as an irrelevant inside Westminster story. With his characteristic blend of defiance and sharp rhetoric, Farage turned the tables, accusing the mainstream media of fixating on outdated scandals instead of addressing the pressing issues facing Britain today. His bold counterattack exposed the disconnect between media priorities and public concerns, delivering yet another reminder of why Farage remains a formidable force in British politics. Now, check this clip.
In terms of being a MP and representing constituents, my point here is not what happened. My point is that there is a discrepancy.
Right. Well,
he
I haven't
said
seen
I
it.
pushed
I believe
that
you.
over.
I believe you.
But
I haven't seen the
that's the court
discrepancy.
document.
It's a spent
Well, what did
conviction,
he tell you
end
he'd
of
done?
conversation.
Well, what did he say he'd
Spent
done to
conviction,
you?
end of conversation.
His constituents.
I tell you what, we're busy, right? We're building a new political party. You are talking about a spent conviction from 20 years ago. What's happened is happened. Whether there are discrepancies or not, I don't know. What I know is he's a fine young man who's turned out really very, very well.
But for the victim,
he's a serving member of Parliament.
for him to imply that she was pushed over when the court document says he kicked her, that's difficult for the victim, isn't it?
I'll believe anything you say.
Nigel Farage's unwavering defense of James McMurdoch underscores his belief in the power of redemption and second chances, a narrative that resonates with voters who refuse to let past mistakes define someone's future. By calling McMurdoch a fine young man, Farage positions him as a symbol of transformation, a stance that appeals to those who value personal growth over perpetual judgment. He rightly emphasizes that the conviction is a spent issue irrelevant in the face of far more pressing crises like immigration, economic stagnation, and crime. Farage's fiery exchange with Beth Rigby isn't just about one MP's past. It's a broader critique of a media obsessed with scandal over substance. His frustration with the focus on McMurdoch's teenage mistake reflects the sentiments of everyday Britons who see the media ignoring their priorities. Accusing mainstream outlets of double standards, Farage calls out the lack of equivalent scrutiny for Labour MPs, tapping into widespread distrust of an establishment perceived to be shielding legacy parties while relentlessly attacking insurgents like Reform UK. Farage's refusal to entertain the controversy shows his focus on real issues: immigration reform, economic renewal, and national identity. By framing the incident as a Westminster distraction, he highlights his commitment to grassroots concerns, reinforcing the image of Reform UK as a rising force, unafraid to challenge the status quo. This moment also allows Farage to double down on his critique of media bias and establish himself as a leader willing to stand by his team. By defending McMurdoch, Farage demonstrates loyalty and solidarity, qualities that resonate with voters tired of political opportunism. His bold stance turns this controversy into an opportunity to rally support, proving Reform UK is a movement fighting for fairness and accountability in the face of relentless establishment attacks. What do you think about Nigel Farage's stance? Is he right to stand by McMurdoch and take on the mainstream media? Let us know in the comments below. Nigel Farage's New Year message delivers a strategic masterstroke, showcasing his knack for framing Reform UK as the only credible alternative to a broken political system. His rhetoric strikes a balance between sharp critique and hopeful vision, designed to tap into voter frustration and project his party as a force for real change. Farage paints a stark picture of Britain's current state, describing a nation trapped in societal and economic decline, plagued by stagnation and losing its national identity. This resonates deeply with voters who feel abandoned by mainstream politics, particularly in communities hit hardest by slow economic recovery and fractured social cohesion. His pledge to turn the country around by 180 degrees reflects an ambitious, transformative vision, positioning Reform UK as the agent of change to rebuild a nation in crisis. The surge in party membership is of thousands joining over Christmas. A testament to Reform UK's growing momentum. Farage's emphasis on this growth reinforces the perception of an unstoppable movement. Coupled with his optimistic tone about the party's future, Farage offers a refreshing counterpoint to the disillusionment that many feel about Britain's current trajectory, energizing supporters with a message of hope. Farage's sharp critique of Labour and the Conservatives as virtually the uni-party plays into a broader frustration with political uniformity. By framing his party as the underdog taking on an entrenched establishment, he amplifies the appeal of Reform UK as a disruptor. His warning of more battles with the two major parties sets the stage for a combative campaign, a narrative that resonates with those who see him as a fighter, willing to challenge the status quo. Farage doesn't stop at rhetoric. He ties his critique of Britain's leadership to real-world issues, leveraging economic woes like flatlining GDP, fears of stagflation, and rising living costs. His ability to link these concerns to leadership failures strengthens his case for Reform UK as the only party capable of offering a solution. His rallying cry, "Don't just sit back and nod," is a clear call to action, urging supporters to take an active role in the movement. This reinforces Reform UK's image as a grassroots-driven force, standing in stark contrast to what Farage portrays as the elitism of Labour and the Conservatives. Farage's strategy is clear. Position Reform UK as the voice of the disillusioned majority, focusing on national identity, economic renewal, and political reform. While critics will question whether reform has the depth and readiness to govern, Farage's emphasis on growing support and grassroots activism shows a party poised to disrupt the political landscape. The challenge now lies in turning this momentum into tangible electoral victories. Can Farage's message of transformation translate into the seats and influence Reform UK needs to reshape Britain? The answer will define the party's future, and perhaps the nation's. Reform UK's fierce condemnation of Labour and the Conservatives for rejecting a public inquiry into grooming gangs is nothing short of a strategic masterstroke. It underscores their commitment to tackling issues the political establishment would rather sweep under the rug, reinforcing their narrative as champions of justice and defenders of those left behind by the system. The grooming gangs scandal is a glaring example of institutional failure, where law enforcement, local councils, and political leaders failed to protect society's most vulnerable. By refusing to back an inquiry, Labour and the Tories have only deepened the perception of indifference and secrecy, prioritizing political optics over the justice victims so desperately deserve. Public frustration is palpable, with many seeing this rejection as another chapter in the establishment's unwillingness to confront uncomfortable truths. Reform UK's unrelenting focus on the issue positions them as the voice of accountability, resonating with those who feel the political class has been complicit in neglecting societal harm. By branding Labour and the Tories as part of the establishment that has failed the victims time and time again, Reform UK strikes at the heart of voter disillusionment. Their demand for a public inquiry signals a bold willingness to challenge institutional complacency, providing a stark contrast to the perceived inertia of mainstream politics. Reform UK's messaging is clear. They are the party of the people, the defenders of victims, and the advocates for systemic reform. By shining a spotlight on grooming gangs, they directly confront the major parties on an issue riddled with political sensitivities. This emotive appeal connects with voters on a deeply personal level, reinforcing Reform's growing reputation as a movement unafraid to tackle the hard truths. Implications are significant. Reform UK's focus on grooming gangs could attract disillusioned voters from communities affected by these failures, as well as those frustrated by the broader inaction of Labour and the Conservatives. However, their success depends on navigating the fine line between advocating for justice and being accused of politicizing a deeply sensitive issue. Critics will undoubtedly try to frame their stance as opportunistic, but the strength of their message lies in its sincerity and focus on solution. By keeping this issue in the public eye, Reform UK could force Labour and the Conservatives to reconsider their positions, putting intense pressure on the establishment to address systemic failures. Successfully pushing for an inquiry, or at the very least keeping the victims' plight in the spotlight, will bolster their image as a party that delivers on its promises and prioritizes justice over political expediency. This calculated yet heartfelt approach positions Reform UK as a party with both the will and the courage to challenge entrenched political norms. Grooming gangs may very well become a defining issue for their platform, offering the potential to galvanize support and reshape the national conversation. Whether they can translate this into lasting political gains will depend on their ability to sustain their focus and prove their intentions are as genuine as their rhetoric. Thanks for watching. Stay connected. Don't forget to like and subscribe to keep up with our latest videos and stay ahead of the curve on the issues shaping our world. For even more, join our free Telegram group, link in the description, for uncensored, no holds barred discussions on the topics that matter most. Be part of the conversation. Your voice counts.